Right, so quick talk about protein today. Clear up a few things regarding percentages of total calories, right? So we hear about 80 10 10, right? The idea that you get 80% of your calories from carbohydrates, 10% from protein, and 10% from fat. Essentially, we're just dealing with macronutrient percentages, and it's a very common theme, of course, in bodybuilding and sports nutrition and health nutrition in general, talking about protein as percentage of calories. Now, I want to sort of talk about why sometimes that way of thinking breaks down a little bit. So in general terms, of course, yeah, I would agree that anything from like 70 to 90% of calories coming from carbohydrate, allowing for like between 5 and maybe 15 or even 20% of calories to come from protein. Let's say 5 to 15. Yeah, that's a great general guideline, but it really depends on how many calories you eat total, right? Because we do have some absolute needs for protein, okay, in terms of how many grams of protein we need. Of course, when you get more active, there's a possibility or likelihood that you would need more protein. Of course you would, because you're breaking down the body more, you're training more, you're breaking down the body more. So you're going to need more protein to replace what's lost. But naturally, when you train more, you also eat more, which means that the percentage of calorie model will still sort of work for that. But to take two extremes, okay, let's think about your grandmother, 85 years old, super sedentary, inactive, doesn't do much at all, has a very low calorie need and therefore a low calorie consumption. Let's say let's say your grandmother consumes 1,500 calories a day or even less. I've heard some old people that are not active, they might go as low as like 1,200 calories per day or something like that. But okay, say 1,500 calories per day. Very low calorie intake in general. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have someone like Michael Arnstein, like the fruitarian ultra runner, Michael Arnstein. He has a channel on YouTube, you can check him out. It's like 6,000 calories a day, right? How would we look at this? Well, if we say that you need, say, 5% of calories to come from protein, then I'll have a calculator here. If we're talking about 5%, of course it's pretty easy to calculate, but I'm going to use the calculator anyway. 5% of 1,500, 75 calories coming from protein. We divide that by 4 because there are 4 calories in each gram of protein. So we get the grams by dividing by 4. We end up at like 18.75, let's say 19 grams of protein for your grandmother. 19 grams a day. That's not a lot. Then we look at Michael Arnstein, also eating 5% of calories from protein, but getting 6,000 calories a day. Maybe that's a little bit extreme. Maybe that's on a high training day. Let's just say 5,000. 5,000 calories a day times 0.05 equals 250 calories from protein divided by 4. That's 62. So on 5% of calories from protein, Michael Arnstein is getting 62 grams and your grandmother is getting 19 grams. Of course, Michael Arnstein needs more, but we also do have a baseline need. So 19 grams is probably not enough for your grandmother. How much is that per kilo body weight? That's an interesting calculation to do. Well, let's suppose your grandmother is a little bit overweight maybe, but then again, the fat weight isn't really that essential. Let's just say she weighs 75 kilos. 75 kilos. And we hear the World Health Organization and like general guidelines regarding protein is that you need 0.8 grams of protein per kilo body weight, okay? And I've heard also that you can probably get by on like half of that, like 0.4, 0.5 grams per kilo body weight. But you gotta remember, and we'll get into this, that's not necessarily what you need to thrive or perform at your top level athletically. That's just like baseline, probably enough kind of level. So if she gets 19 grams and we divide that by 75 kilos, that's 0.25 grams per kilo. That's not meeting the basic recommendation of 0.8. Now, let's say she's lighter. Let's say she weighs only like 55 kilos, okay? 19 grams divided by 55 kilos is 0.35. Still not meeting the recommendation. If she weighs 55 kilos and she needs 0.8 grams of protein per kilo, that's 55 times 0.8, that's 44 grams. She needs 44 grams of protein. Now, how much is that as a percentage of calories on her 1500 calorie diet? Well, 44 times 4, because there's 4 calories in every gram of protein, equals 176 calories. 176 divided by 1500 equals 0.11.7. So about, let's just round it up and say 12% of calories from protein. That's what the grandmother needs. So she couldn't get by on 5% of calories from protein. She needs 12% of her calories to come from protein just to meet the baseline level. Now, Michael Arnstein, let's take a look at him. He is 5,000 calories a day and gets, what was it? 62 grams of protein per day. Now, what's that in relation to his body weight? Well, I don't know exactly his body weight, but I would guess it probably is like 58 or something like that, 58 kilos. So let's just say 58. 62 grams divided by 58 kilos equals 1.06 grams. He gets about a gram of protein per kilo body weight at his 5,000 calorie diet, eating only 5% of calories from protein. So here you can see how Michael Arnstein, eating 5% of calories from protein, he gets 1 gram per kilo, quite adequate. Whereas your grandmother need to eat actually 12% of calories from protein in order to just meet the baseline recommendation. So you can see how percentage of calories is not always the best way to go. Sometimes it's easier or better to go by an absolute amount. But of course, in general term, 5 to 15% of calories from protein is probably fine. As an athlete though, as a runner or as a bodybuilder or really any athlete, you might want to consider the fact that a little bit more protein could probably, or is actually definitely proven to improve your performance, actually improving your training adaptations, improving the training effect, allowing your body to adapt more to any given training load by increasing the amount of protein you eat. So 0.8 grams per kilo, is that enough? I think we should probably aim for a little bit more. And that's what I'm going to get into in next week's video. Stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, if you're interested in running and if you're an athlete, you better check out my other channel, The Lone Trail. I'll put a link to it here, where I talk about running. And I also have a running coaching business. There's a link in the description if you're looking for training plans. And you better also check me out on Instagram, where I've started posting quite regularly lately. So there's a link in the description for that as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.